Hello, church. It's Pastor Ben. I hope you're all having a great Christmas, and I want to wish you Merry Christmas from myself and everyone at Church of Promise, no matter whether you're one of our regulars or one of you that just happens to be listening today. You know, there's a lot of things I love about Christmas. I love the traditions that we have this time of the year. You know, I grew up with a lot of great ones. Decorating the tree, seeing the Salvation Army bell ringers out there, Christmas shopping, scoping out all the possible presents, you know, and I mean, shopping was really different back then when I was a kid. You know, you would go to the mall and, you know, I would stop at the toy store, you'd see Santa Claus, you'd run over to Sears, a couple other stores in the mall, and then, yeah, maybe you hit the Walmarts and the Targets and the other stores out there, but it just seems like today, these days, it's so impersonal. You know, you go to the you go on the internet, you order your presents, you decide whether you want them wrapped for you or not, and you're done. It just seems like it's. But we would go out and look at Christmas lights as well. You know, drive around in the car, sing Christmas songs with my parents and my brother and I. It was just a wonderful time of the year. And then Christmas Eve would come, and then we would head over to my grandparents' house in Waterloo, and we would all get to open one present that was from our from our grandparents that time, and it was just so much fun, you know. And we'd go there and we'd get a meal, and all of us cousins would be up in our little room that they had for us, and we'd be talking about what we might be getting for Christmas. But there was always the anticipation of, when do we open presents? When do we open presents? I hope we get to open presents soon. And you know, some of those presents were really unique. I mean, every year it seemed like my all the men in our family, you know, the grown men, I should say, would get a jar of pickled herring from my grandparents, which I never understood that one. I never even liked that one. I never liked it myself, and to me it just stank. It was just, you could smell that on somebody who had been eating that, you know, when they're all the way across the room. It's like, get away from me, you stink, you know, you smell like pickled herring. But and then there was even one year where a cousin of mine who was really into hunting got like this deer urine mask scent thing that, you know, it's a bottle of basically stuff that smells like deer pee. And you know, of course, everybody wanted to open it to see what it smells like, and my grandma was like, no, do not open that in my house, don't open that in my living room. You know, she didn't want to risk that smell getting in there. She didn't want to risk any of it getting spilled on her carpet. She was like, no, get that stuff out of here, you know. So it was a wonderful time. And but then Christmas would finally come, and oh my goodness, you know, the anticipation, all of it building up to that moment. You know, I would have so much trouble as a kid trying to get to sleep on Christmas Eve night, and it did not matter what time I woke up in the morning, if it was 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You know, it was like I was up until those presents were opened. I could not even fall asleep again after that, until after that. So it was wonderful. And you know, then of course my dad loved the classic Christmas movies, you know, the Scrooge, The Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street, and there's so many other ones, and those always made an appearance in our house during that season. And of course there was all the good food and all the good candy during this season as well. So much I just love about the holidays. And you know, of course, when I got older and I started to embrace church more on my own, I started to realize that I learned more about how important the Advent season was to our faith. All of those things that I had mentioned, while still wonderful, granted, I learned were not the full meaning of the season. And for the past several weeks here at Church of Promise, we've been talking about the events and the times that were leading up to the appearance of this Christ child. The Christ child who came and walked among us and will someday come again. not as a child when he comes again, but he will come as a Lord and a King. Now, we don't know when that's going to be. I mean, a lot of people have made guesses. A lot of people have made exhaustive studies of Scripture and looked at world events hard and tried to figure out when they think it's going to be. And every time their guesses and their human wisdom has proven faulty on that. But when people think about Jesus, there's a lot of opinions about him. Most people in the world actually have a favorable view of Jesus. They liked who he was and what he was about, ironically enough. But unfortunately, a lot of those same people have an unfavorable view of Christians and his church. But who was Jesus? Well, the opinions on that vary even within our own country here in the United States. Some people believe that Jesus was a prophet, perhaps even the greatest of the prophets, or certainly the most recent of the prophets, unless you're unless you believe in Islam. Others believe that he was a teacher or a person of good morals who tried to help other people live a good life. Some people believe that Jesus was just simply another flawed human being who lived a life, that was subject to sin, just like you or me or, any of us, really. And then there are some who, of course, like I do, believe that Jesus was divine, and then believe that he was the Son of God. Well, there's even a small minority of people who believe that Jesus did not exist at all. There's a lot of different views about Jesus, even in our own country, our own part of the world. And when we come to Christmas, it's often a time when people talk about Jesus. Jesus becomes simply another theme of the season, another part of the holiday. And I do love the things that we see in Christmas. I mentioned that already. I love the trees. I love the decorations. I love the light. I love the lights. I love the presents. I love the food. I love the candy. I love seeing my relatives. And I even love the magic, that we talk about with Santa Claus, is, the Santa Claus, the reindeer, Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, Blitzen, and then the most famous of them all, Rudolph, of course, with his red nose and, kind of like my nose gets when I'm outside too long, when it's like this in the wintertime, right? And, and I love the story of the elves and all those classic Christmas movies, but, I love everything about this time. But my friends, we cannot let Jesus become simply another part of the season. We cannot let Jesus become another theme that we talk about, something that we get out of the closet and put on the table or the windowsill or something, just as a decoration during the holidays, and put away again when the holiday is over. He needs to be more if we believe in him, my friends. So who is Christ? Who is Christ to us? Well, in the book of Isaiah the prophet, he writes, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, or Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time and on forever. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this." What can we take from that? Well, my friends, there's 4 things that we can take from that I'm going to share with you today. There's more than 4 actually, but I'm just going to focus on these 4 today. Number 1 is we can focus on is Christ is our hope. These words were written that I had just read by Isaiah 700 years before the birth of Christ. And there was a 400-year gap between the end of the events of the Old Testament and then where the New Testament picks up, where God is largely silent. The people were waiting. The people were hoping. They were looking for their long-awaited Messiah, the one that Isaiah had promised, and it had been 700 years. That's a long time to wait, my friends. O come, Emmanuel. Christ is our hope. And he is not only just the hope of the Jewish people who were waiting for him so long ago, but he is still our hope today. You see, when Isaiah talks about of the greatness of his government and peace, there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. Some of those things have not actually happened yet. You see, Isaiah wasn't just prophesying about the time of Jesus' birth, but he was also talking about that time when he will come again. Isaiah may not have realized that when he saw it for the first time. Who knows what Isaiah saw? I mean, he just wrote down what he saw, but it may not actually, he may not have seen the true scope of what was going to happen. He may not have realized that there was going to be time between these events that he was seeing. Christ is still our hope today. I mean, we can, I love my life. I love everything about my life for the most part, except for maybe working in retail during the holiday season. That part is, I could go without that for sure. But generally speaking, I like my life. But my friends, I cannot wait for the day that Christ establishes his kingdom. I cannot wait for that time when we are together forever with him, all together, not just me and just a few of my friends, but from every tribe and every nation, every tongue, every one of the followers of Christ gathered together in a kingdom of justice and love and peace that will be of no end. My friends, I yearn for that day, and I hope you do too. O come, Emmanuel. Christ is our hope. And even as we dog our way through this existence that can have great times and bad times, you see, Christ meets us in that place of hopelessness. When we're in that place where we seem like we have no hope, and he meets us in that place and he delivers us from despair, even when we think it's too late. He is our hope. Christ is also our peace, my friends, and that should be no surprise because Christ is called the Prince of Peace. He comes to bring peace. The government that we are talking about is going to be a government of peace, and there will be no end. I yearn for that, my friends. But even today, in this world of crazy chaos that goes on around us, he is still our peace. You see, when our world is disrupted by change, whether it's disease or famine or loss of a job, loss of a loved one, or maybe bad weather, as we're dealing with right now, certainly, or winds, or whatever that change may be, whether it's a welcome change or a not so welcome change, and we need an anchor to hold on to in the middle of the crazy. Christ is that anchor. He is our peace. Thirdly, my friends, Christ is also our joy. You see, I remember the anticipation of opening those gifts on Christmas Day when I was a child. it was so exciting, and I had gone out, I had circled all those things in the Sears catalog that I wanted, and I, pointed out all the toys that I wanted in the stores and everything, and I knew I wasn't going to get all of those things because, it probably would have bankrupted my poor parents if they would have given, my parents weren't poor. When I said poor, I meant, my poor as in, oh, I feel bad for you, having to try to figure out which one of these things to get your kids, right? It would have bankrupted my parents if they would have tried to get me every single thing I tried to ask for in Christmas. But, just the surprise of seeing what that thing was. I mean, those packages had been sitting there and tormenting me for so long. They'd been sitting under the Christmas tree for a week or maybe more than a week. And of course, I had been shaking them, trying to figure out what they were. I'd been, trying to peek in the corners of the wrapping paper. But you see, my parents were so good at disguising gifts. I never could really figure out what they were until I opened them. But just the anticipation and the surprise of seeing which one of those things, what gift, what it actually was. It was so exciting. And, and I miss that a little bit as I've gotten older, because two things have happened. One, there's generally fewer things I ask for, or maybe the things I ask for are a little more expensive, and my parents just kind of ask me what I want, and now I pretty much know what I'm getting even before Christmas time. But you see, and I love the anticipation. You see, the joy of that moment when that present is opened, and the birth of and the coming of Jesus should have been a joyful moment for the Jewish people. I mean, it's what they were waiting for, and it was for some people. For some, it was received with joy. We saw how the shepherds reacted. We saw the three kings who came from the east, and of course Mary and Joseph and Jesus, had friends, the disciples who became the apostles, and how so many people's lives were changed by Jesus, but many of them chose instead to reject him because Jesus wasn't acting like the Messiah they wanted or the Messiah they expected. And many of the people, the church leaders or the churchy people of the day, also rejected him because they were jealous of him. It's kind of like opening a gift and going, oh, I don't know if I really like this. Yet, my friends, the anticipation of all we desire, that time, that government that I've been talking about, where peace will not end, where death will be a thing of the past, where disease will be a thing of the past, where sin will be erased and gone from our lives, is to come. All we desire, all of our hope here and now is in Christ because of what Christ did. And because of what Christ did, my friends, the best is yet to come. The anticipation of that day, the anticipation of that final gift is yet to come. From hope comes peace, and from that hope and peace comes joy, my friends. Finally, as I get close to wrapping this up today, Christ is our love. You see, the reason Christ came was because of love, because he loves us. The Bible tells us in John 3:16, this is the words of Jesus, mind you. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. And he goes on to say, for God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Every action, everything Jesus did, and everything he still does today is motivated by his love for you, and his love for me, and his love for us. Everything he did was done in love. He loves you, my friends. And he is our example of love as he loves us with this complete and self-sacrificing love, the love that he literally gave everything he could, his very life. He does this as an example to us, so as we are to also love others. That, my friend, is who Jesus is. Hope, peace, joy, and love. And that's what Advent and that's what Christmas is really about. May God bless you, my friends. Have a Merry Christmas and an awesome New Year. God bless you.